This is Michelle, and welcome to Raising Your Consciousness. This is a space to raise your consciousness and reach your full spiritual potential, and that's through spiritual, esoteric, and even magical practices. This is a space to bring happiness and meaning back into your life. Let's get started. Hi, this is Michelle, and today I have a very special guest, Karen Kaspardlove, and we are going to be talking about something I know that you have never heard about. So I always like to bring on these guests that have some really cool stories and things that's really going to pique your interest and make you really want to be drawn into the story. So we're going to be talking about Toltec Warriors and dreamers and Astral Projection and a crystal network and all kinds of really cool things that has to do with sending these crystals all over the world and creating this network of protection for all the prophecies that come. We're going to be talking about prophecies. We're going to be talking about some of the most interesting things. So Karen, okay, so I want to start off with, you said that you're a Toltec warrior. Can you just start there and tell me what that is?
Oh my goodness. It's a belief system, of course, and it's from the jungles. Back it predates the Aztec and the Incas. It's around, back when the Olmecs at the Toltec was a civilization that existed, quite a period of time. And it's a system of knowledge that is passed down, or was passed down, and still is, through generations and generations. Not necessarily written as much as for generations and generations, but in the more recent modern times, most people would know the authors of the Toltec, and background would be the Castaneda series with Don Juan, which probably would have been the most detailed and out there at the time. It's been around for a long time. And there's many other new authors in the Toltec background that have come forward and have written about the Four Agreements and about the Toltecs and about their belief system. So there's a lot of material out there. There's quite a bit about that system.
How did you come about becoming a Toltec warrior?
Oh my God. I was involved into it and brought into it before I realized what it was, actually. And I was quite young at the time. And I was actually the youngest in the party, because most of the people that I dealt with that were part of the group were actually at that time 50s, 60s, and 70s. And at that time, I was in my late 20s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I was the youngest in the group at the time. I didn't realize what it was. The main thing I'll say, I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's not the gist of it, but it's part of the background about.
Yeah, it is. I think it's important for people to understand. Yeah,
to be a dreamer and a stalker and how that works. But I can honestly say that my dreaming and my dreaming skills and capabilities started as a young child. Actually, I've always been a dreamer. And I can actually say that even as a young child, I couldn't wait to get to bed at night. I was one of those kids, most kids don't want to go to bed. I wanted to go to bed so that I could start my dreaming and my dream life. And I've always had that split. And I'm a Gemini anyway. So I always say I love
Geminis.
I've always lived, I've lived 120 years already, because I've lived, 60 some years in this reality and the 60 some in my dream reality, basically.
Yeah.
So I've always known this. So that's sort of, just so people know, they always say, well, when did this start? Well, it starts when you're born and into this reality and depending, right? So I can honestly say as a child, I was a dreamer already. So I guess the universe and how it's reality, so it aligned events and things in my life to make me look at things differently, so that I would be directed on that path, of course. So the most important event, I should say, that started me is when I was 18. Three things happened. In 1979, I had a near-death experience, and I almost bled to death or hemorrhaged. I was already an explorer and adventurer, and during that period of time, still in that 79, I was in the mountains in the Northwest Pacific, at the top of the mountains in the Pine Pass, it's called. And here I was picking up fossilized shells and marine life on the top of a mountain, thousands of feet up, and the ocean's hundreds of miles away. Well, how did that happen? I'm sitting there thinking, well, what the heck? Well, and I was 18. I'm thinking I was 18. I'm thinking, what? And the other thing was I had a very specific vision, believe it or not, about computers and information technology that was very specific about seeing the future and the importance of computers. I won't get into it. I did other podcasts about it, but I saw a vision, about technology and coding and being a programmer and just the future. And so I went right into programming. At 18, 1979, I started courses on computer programmer analyst.
Wait, can you back up and tell me about the vision?
When I was 18, just after that, I had this very peculiar vision, where you shift, and I completely shifted and was sitting somewhere else. And what it was I was in a huge room, and you got to remember, this is 1979, before what we had in the future of what I saw, because it didn't really exist yet. Because I did go into the field, remember, and I became a professional IT programmer and worked my whole career, and even with the government in that field. Okay. But when I was 18, what I saw was a huge room of little cubicles. Mm-hmm. And there were hundreds and hundreds of cubicles. And it showed me the first cubicle in large that I could see. And in that cubicle was a god figure, like you would think of God. And he was in a lab coat and had the gray long beard. What he was doing, the person, was in the cubicle. He had a containment unit in a square. And in the square was the earth. And at the time, things were going on, and it was like a different biosphere, and things were big on it, like the dinosaurs or something were going on, like that type of thing. It's like they were experimenting with the world, and he was, and then on the wall up above was a thing, and it said God 2020. And that was his QB. That was his number, God 2020. And then beside the thing attached to this unit that was injecting this laser thing in the world, it was attached to this computer system, and out was all this data and information on the screen, and it was printing, and they were looking at all the things on the computer spitting out about what was going on in this world and what the end thing. And in the dream, there were two people in lab coats that were senior to this God 2020, and I was one of them. I was observing it with another person beside me, and we were deciding whether or not we should put the plug on this biosphere. Well, this one didn't work out. We didn't like this simulation. We didn't like this computer simulation of the world that we were doing, and we were going to scrap that one and start another one. That's what we were doing. We had our clipboards, and I was holding the clipboard, and that God 2020 figure was telling us all about the printout and this big computer that was spitting it all out. And in the room beyond was cubicle after cubicle after cubicle of the same setup, and each one had their own God, whatever, with their own thing simulation they were doing.
Wow.
That was my vision when I was 18.
Wow. Okay. So I want to kind of step in here and say something because, like millennials and even the generations after that, they have no concept of being without a computer. I mean, I'm 57 years old. I was raised there was no such thing as a computer. Okay.
Correct. And I'm older than you. So
yeah. So I remember because I graduated I was born in 66. I graduated in 84. When I graduated, there was no computers. Okay. When I was growing up, there was a landline, there was a TV that had like 3 channels, and you had to manually change them. And, you had antennas and you had landlines that plugged into the wall, and there was no call waiting. There was no answering services or answering phones or
party lines.
Yes.
If you share our telephone lines.
Yeah. And if the phone line was busy, the only way you could get through was call the operator and say, I need to do an emergency breakthrough. I wanted to kind of emphasize that because when you're having a dream in 1979 about computers that didn't even exist, okay, that's kind of mind-blowing to me because that's a true vision. It really is, because obviously we live in a computer technology industry now. Like everything's on the internet, I mean, we have these little mini computers that we carry around that has access to everybody in the world and all the information in the world. So it's crazy. I love it. I'm just so enthralled by the story. So,
but that's how it started.
Yeah.
Really into the journey and what happened. But you can imagine, well, those are the 3 things that triggered why I went into the IT field, why I became a computer programmer analyst, and why I became an information analyst, and all of that. And that was my professional career. I did my career with the government and with the Ministry of Health and Mental Health branch. And so, and at the same time, I also started my catastrophic geology interest and career, and became a professional prospector miner. And I have done the both at the same time, simultaneously, for the last 40 years. And that is how I have collected my 5 tons of.
Yeah. So back up and explain that. So, so why don't you start with what is the Crystal Network? Why it started? What vision you had to create it? Because I think you were talking about like you had a vision in the astral plane, and there was some people that you were talking to, and then they kind of like told you that you had to bring these crystals down. I mean, like, I know it's like some of that story. So kind of tell that whole story, like start with your vision.
Okay. So, I was already mining and collecting crystals. Okay. I was already doing that. So in September 27th, 1996, that's the exact date. I keep track because I learned how to astrology. And I was trained by a master astrologer who was the main female of the Toltec party that I belonged to. And so she was considered the Nahual woman, but she was also a master astrologer and at cycles and patterns. So that's how I learned that about the importance of cycles and dates and energy, right? And so what happened, I always have lived rural, and I had a huge crystal circle that I built out of my crystals, like, that you could sit inside of to meditate and shift. And
so you're talking about like outside
in the forest, outside the house, in the forest.
So you created this like circle.
I built a crystal circle out of complete crystals, quartz crystals, because I had a big collection at the time. So I created a crystal circle to dream in and to shift in, to meditate in, to sit, under the moon, the stars, and certain energies, and especially during lunar eclipses for the energy. And I compare it to, if you look into the history of when Buddha sat under the tree and became Buddha, was during a total lunar eclipse. So I progressed the chart forward to a same kind of energetic setup. And I also had two dreaming crystals that I had mined. So one in my right hand, one in my left hand, very specific. One was a left hand crystal, one was a right hand crystal. They're very specific that way, actually can form that way. And so on September 27th, 1996, during a total lunar eclipse in the evening, I went into my dream circle and had a very specific dream and shifted, and it was just incredible what happened that night. I didn't expect it. I didn't know what would happen when I actually fell into a shift, a sleep, I guess you would say, the shift. And I had a full, basically lucid dream where I was mining, and I was with one of this male other crystal dreamer miner that happened to be there in the dream. And we were specifically given the task of mining these particular crystals, and they were actually in Central America where the dream was taking place, and in this cave. And it was very scary. I was very nervous. I knew I was dreaming. I knew I was in a lucid dream because I was fully conscious and aware, as a dreamer and practicing. And I knew that I was dreaming, and that we were there. I knew that it was dangerous. That there was some other negative energy outside the cave that was interested in what we were doing at the time, right? That was observing. And, so I knew to be kind of aware of that. And then there was at the one point where I had gotten the crystals that I was supposed to gather, these certain crystals, and I had them collected. And then it was at the point where I was supposed to remove them from this cave or the womb, or, it's dark and the way it was. And so I was just going to leave the cave and start to head to escape, to bring the crystals forth and take them out. And just when I was leaving the cave, we were attacked, and there was people with guns and different things going on, really, that wanted the crystals. It was a big battle going on. And there was this field that I could see in the jungle on the other side, because this was taking place in the jungle, which I've been many times, but this was before I went to the
Mhm.
jungle, but so the jungle was on the other side, and I had to run with the crystals. But at the time, so then this was all during the lucid dream. Then, as I was starting to run to escape the gunfire with the crystals, automatically when they were shooting, I was astral projected. I'm serious. I was astral projected on that spot like a rocket ship in a spiral pattern, and you have to spiral out of this matrix that we're in, or this construct and a certain energetic thing. I don't know. And I ended up completely breaking free and sitting. Oh, it was really weird. I ended up sitting at this sort of peeking over this huge table thing, sort of, but I was so tiny and so insignificant. And they were kind of surprised I was there. It was just all these big glowing uh, figures, a swirling light and energy, right? And it was, of course, all telepathic. And you know what I mean? Like nobody
Yeah.
talked. It was all just energy, but there was these huge, gigantic, swirling figures, and they were surprised to see me. I was like, oh, what are you doing here? And I'm peeking over right at this thing, and they're there, oh yeah, it's you, kind of. And then I get this whole vision about what's coming up, and crystals forming this crystal network, sending them out, this overlaying something that's going on the planet, negative, this negative entity that's got our planet in this web, right? That's going to happen, right? And I'm given this vision that I must take all these crystals that I'm dreaming and gathering that are the same. And at a certain point, I'd be told to send them out and make this crystal grid that overlays this negative one. And people that are awake of certain energies are going to come to me and now and in the future and want these crystals to connect them to hold the spot. We're holding energy. We're holding energetic energy on the planet to offset. It was to offset a negative energy that's on the planet.
Okay, so I have a question about that. Okay, so you had this dream or vision
Mm-hmm.
of the God 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you had this one, and I'm kind of seeing a correlation here. So I'm kind of wondering that simulation that they were trying to figure out for 2020 and building this crystal network for 2020, that prophecy that with all this was supposed to, this thing before it happened was going to happen. Did you have any clue, or were they trying to, when they got
No,
2020, were they trying to manipulate or control or create the virus that happened from this God 2020, or was it or was he trying to manage it, or did you not know anything? You just kind of like were dropped in there and you don't know what
yeah, I had no clue at the time. It took years and years of piecing everything together, and
I can imagine.
I only had recall of that vision only several years ago to remember how that connected into everything. And I can honestly say I really didn't see how everything fit until 2018, when all of a sudden I realized it was time on January 20th, January 31st. 2018 was another total lunar eclipse, a blood moon. And all of a sudden, I was watching a show, one of our, YouTubers, Rex Bear and Awaken Thing, and I was triggered that it was time exactly to start mailing out all the crystals all over the world and start, putting them in place to get ready for some big event that was coming up, which had to do as with the prophecies out of Australia that I didn't know I was even going to be part of till it happened in January 2020, where it all came together. You see, you don't, it all, like I had no clue. All these things just keep happening, and then it does. It all fits together, and it ended up being out of part of the prophecies to the next age out of December 2020, out of the solstice and out of Uluru when it was activated. And so the crystal network was activated on that date. And if you go onto the crystal network, and we can talk about the story, but I had been mining fossils in the hill country in Texas
Mm-hmm.
It was part of the 150 million year old Glen Rose Formation, it was called. And I was digging out these huge protocardia clams, they're called. And they're known as Texas hearts because they look exactly like a fossilized heart and they're huge.
Mm-hmm.
And they're perfect and they're really, really neat. And so I was mining these, and I also had my big quartz crystals. And at the time, I got a vision, like a note that it was time to send something to Australia, very specific. And I don't know, it just came together. And there's this woman, Lyndall, who knew about the Crystal Network, and she was contacted. And the Aboriginal women, the auntie they're called, and they're the elders of the tribes out of Australia.
The Toltec?
No, this, see, we're getting confused a little bit. I'm ahead of myself now compared to the Toltec story about how that worked. I collected the crystals to get for the grid.
No, that's okay. So what kind of tribe is she part of?
She was part of the Australia tribe. It's the Burunga tribe, I believe, and there's several of them. But if you go onto the Crystal Network, it kind of tells you the whole story. And what happened was I sent a message and to Australia, to Auntie, because she was in contact about, they were talking about how to bring in the new age of Aquarius and every important age, the elders, the women of Australia, they have these song lines and they walk a trail of tears, it's called, and they dream in. It's known in Australia that the Australians they dream in the next ages, right, with their dream world and their song line. In January, the tribe was going to start getting ready to walk the trail of tears, it's called, and they start in the One Mountain system and they walk, and they were getting ready for the prophecies in 2020 in December out of Uluru to do that whole thing. And so when I sent the protocardia heart and the crystal specific, very large, to Australia, to Auntie, I just said that I wanted to send it out of love to connect the two countries together, to North America, to Australia, and help, in the energy and what they were doing in love and honor and respect. And hopefully, that I knew somehow there was some kind of connection. And so she responded back about how important it was that I sent this, and that on when I sent it on the Passover in March, she actually cleansed it and bathed the heart in the crystals. And the tribe and the women actually used the heart and the crystal I sent to guide them in their walk of tears and to help them dream in our next age that we're moving into, and to create our next age of Aquarius and the whole dream of the world, to create our world. And they actually used the crystal in the heart from Texas that I had sent, and the crystals from Canada that I had collected, the one big one, to guide them and to energize them and to be part of the prophecy. And so that's how we were first originally tied together. And then at that point, before that, and within that 2 years, from when I first started in January 2018 up until that March 2020, I had already spent that whole time sending thousands of crystals all over the world. Big crystals, huge 10, 12, 20 point ones to go like to the mountains in Colorado and up in the Yukon and specific points, and big ones, small ones, all in between, to connect the whole world together for the prophecy that happened on December 20th out of Uluru.
How in the world did you find these people in all these different countries all over the world? How did you find them to send these crystals to?
I didn't find them. They came to me. I started doing podcasts to the alternative community, all of us people that, and I did quite a few, lots of them at the time, and told my story, and it was with Wayne Steiger's group and Milky Way and a whole pile of different ones. And then I explained what I was doing, and they'd contact me and said, yes, we want to be part of the crystal grid. And I'd go into details and I'd email and had quite a conversation going, so everybody knew. So everybody basically contacted me that wanted a crystal and wanted to participate and knew what was going on and knew what we were doing. Yeah.
Wow. That is such an amazing story. So what was that crystal network? Now you got all these crystals that are connecting, right? And obviously you would go into your circle and you would activate them and create this force field basically of connecting everybody in the world. What was it supposed to do?
What it's doing and what it's supposed to do is creating an alternative energy system for us to connect, communicate in the future, and stay connected energetically, and overlay the negative system of creating our reality and what's going on even now, as you know, within the world, and the internet that we have now, and the World Wide Web of what's going on, and the push towards the transhumanism and all of what's going on. So this was more of a pure natural crystal grid of energy of us that use our energetic dream doubles, people that that are dreamers, people that how do we say, we know about our energetic dream doubles, our energetic doubles, our higher selves, right? We're connected to our higher selves. We have that energetic connection, right? So this enabled us to connect together energetically. And believe it or not, during that period of time, and that we actually are able to dream together, connect together in triads, communicate together. We created a community, right? That we energetically know when somebody's not feeling well, when we need to send out intentions. It connects us together in a different type of energy that helps us hold a place on the planet. We're holding a positive energy that's different, right? In each of the spots, right? So each person is holding that energy, and what the crystal does, it connects us together. And each person can hold the crystal and know that when they hold that crystal, they're connecting to other people of like mind, and that crystal energizes and reaches out and connects to the other points and the other crystals, right?
Yeah,
building our own energetic web, our own energetic field around the planet.
Yeah. Oh my God. That is so like amazing. I love this story. So, can you tell me a little bit about the prophecies? Or is that something you're not allowed to talk about? Or
No, we can, but I think what we kind of missed the importance a little bit, and it was my fault. I got sidetracked a little
that's
bit.
okay.
Actually, Michelle, is about how I acquired the crystals and how they make different. I did talk a little bit about that one particular dream, and about because I was already mining and collecting crystals right at the time. I was already doing it for quite a few years. But with that particular dream, it was like I knew what to do with all the crystals I was kind of collecting, at the time. I wasn't sure quite until certain events happened. And I'll show you how our world, I'll tell you one story about the crystals and how this works and our connection, how we're all connected and we don't even know, okay? How a Toltec warrior works. So I was already mining the crystals, and I had some, and I'm also a crystal carver. So I carve wizards and faces, and people can look. I do carvings, and they're, really nice. And I was sent as part of the Toltec path. I was going on a vision quest, and I was going to the jungle. Okay. So I had my backpack, I had my stuff, I had some crystals I was going to take to trade and some carved ones and things with me. And so I'm off to the jungle. Nobody knows I'm going. I'm going to Costa Rica. Okay. And nobody knows me there. I have my backpack. I only have a contact name. I don't know the person. I've never met them. But I had a person that came to Canada that had been there that gave me the person's name and said, well, if you ever go to Costa and, and you'd want to do this, I knew the person quite well. Here's the person's name, basically. Okay. And the person didn't even know I was coming. Okay.
Wow.
So I have my backpack. I'm going. It's quite the journey, and I have my book mostly done. But anyways, so I did start off on the north coast near Tamarindo, Liberia, and I was 2 weeks up on the north coast first, right before I made my way to Uvita, Montepalo area where I was going, right? So I was already up there for 2 or 3 weeks. So I showed up in the middle of the night, okay, with my backpack, and showed up at this person's door who was a contact name of the person I did not know. Okay. So it's dark, it's middle of the night. So I meet him. Okay. Vern, and I say, oh, I know so and so. He gave me your name. Oh, okay, I know, great, okay, come on in. We introduce ourselves and we talk and we have a great visit, and so I go to bed. Okay, right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I get up in the morning. Okay, it's pretty early, and I get out of bed and I look in the mirror because there's a dresser and a mirror, kind of, and oh my God, I'm broken out in spots all over, face, body. I've got spots everywhere. And get this, I did not even leave the bedroom yet, right? I realized I had these spots, and I hear this knock on the door, not my door, the house that I'm staying at, and
Yeah.
I hear this exchange at the door, and Vern calls me and calls me to come out of the bedroom. I come out of the bedroom full of spots. I don't want to come out. Get this, there's the medicine man, Toltec warrior, come from the mountains, the tribe, 2 or 3 days away from the mountains, shows up at Vern's door, knows I'm there, has an old Pepsi bottle full of this brown tincture that smells like cinnamon shit for me, knows I'm there, and it's for me. It's for my spots.
Wow.
For my spots. Talking in Spanish. He's there. I know her.
That's crazy.
Tells
Oh
Vern this is for
my God.
me. Tells me
Yes.
how to apply it for 2 or 3 days to get rid of my spots. Right? Think
Wow.
about it. And then the rest of the trip, I was under his tutelage, to learn. That's another whole story. Callistra, he's, from the mountains. I'm telling you. So how does that happen? If we're not connected in another plane on the active side of infinity, and you know what I'm saying? He knew I was coming.
Wow.
How? He knew.
Yeah.
But, it was a 2 or 3 day trek.
Exactly where to go too. Wow, that is amazing.
So this is how incredible this whole thing is, right? About it.
Mhm.
So so that's part of my Toltec training, and and then I was assigned after that two men that were older than me that were also dreamers and
Mhm.
miners and crystal miners. So then how in dreaming we'd go into dreaming, create the crystals within 2 weeks. I was pulling forth these very specific crystals that we created in dreaming, right? In these big hydrothermal pockets like wombs, I was pulling them out. And these crystals were the crystals that were to be delivered around the world.
Wait a second. Hold on. Hold on. You're dreaming
Mm-hmm.
and you create these crystals in the dream.
Yeah.
You pull them down into this reality.
Yes.
How did that happen? And where did they show up?
Okay. Well, this is part of being in knowing the two realities exist and are real and having total consciousness and awareness. So with these two other men, we would talk in this reality and we say, okay, let's tonight or, in the next week or so, let's try to dream red druzy crystals with red caps and little rocket ships and little things. And let's make, we'll create this, Okay. So then for the next week or so, we would, each night it doesn't, sometimes not successful, take a few tries, or whatever. But within about a week or so, we would end up having the dream, like meeting up, right? And in the dream, it would be a full mining dream. Like I told you about the one where I was astral projected. I was actually mining in Brazil in a cave in that dream. But this one's we would be dreaming and we'd be mining in the dream, right? It's real. We're conscious, we're aware of dreaming, we're lucid dreaming, we're lucid dreamers.
Wow.
It's part of being a Toltec, right?
So you were dreaming about these crystals. You finally got a point to where you were able to create them in the dream.
In the dream, yeah. And in the dream, we're mining, right? So we're actually mining, and collecting them and wrapping them up, putting them in buckets like usual, mining trip, and got my chisels and hammers and everything. And so that was, in a dream. And then I would say within about a week or two, the next time we went mining, right? And, I had a certain area that I kind of really liked. But within that 2 weeks, I would be opening up what's called a hydrothermal pocket, right? And chiseling, wedging and big pry bars, rock. And okay, how did I know that? I'm going to say how this works. You know how people are water diviners and they can find water and stuff like that with rods and stuff? Well, I'm a crystal diviner.
You're a
I can
what kind of diviner? Say it again.
crystals, quartz crystals. I can walk up to any formation, anything, and walk right up to crystals and pockets of crystals. I know where they are. I can feel them. That's how I find them. How do you think I can open up a full pocket that's completely rock and know that there's crystals in there?
Wow.
I can just walk in areas, right, and walk, and I just the guys that I mined with were just flabbergasted. I walk around for a little bit and go right to the spot, and next thing I'd be opening up this big pocket, and next thing you know, it would be the crystals that we dreamed exactly.
Wait a second. So you're telling me that you opened up a pocket and you found the crystals you created in a dream?
All of them. All the ones that I've sent out to the crystal network all over the world are those crystals that I've had outside cleansing and charging since I started mining them in the 90s, all the way to start giving them out in 2008.
Wait a second. So you created this.
Yes.
Let me just make sure I got this clear. Okay. You created this in a dream.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you projected them into this reality, and then you scoped out where it landed. You knew
Yeah.
exactly where it was. You opened up this pocket and wham, there's those crystals.
Yes.
The exact ones you created.
Yes.
Like even the same colors.
Yes, that's why I have quartz crystals in every color of the rainbow, because I tried it over and over. So my collection in the
Mhm.
5 tons, if you go to the Crystal Network, and I have pictures there, you'll see my yard. You have to go, and I have them out in trays. But I have every color of the rainbow from clear, white, yellow, peach, orange, red, green, brown.
Do you have blue?
Well, yeah, I do, but not in those particular ones. Yeah. I'm creating and going to create, as you know, that's a different story of creation for the blue that we need for future.
I have to, I'm going to divert for a second because
Yeah.
I have to tell you something that
Yeah.
you may have cleared up for me that I never really understood. I'm going to tell you this little short story real quick, and
Okay.
then we'll continue. Years ago, when I was in my 20s, I met this woman who was telepathic, and she originally came to me in my dreams, and then my girlfriend called me up and said, "Hey, I went to this healer, and when she was doing the session on me, she was like flipping through my head like a card file. She stopped on you and said, 'Tell your friend,' and then showed my picture to come to me." And then she came to me in a dream and said, "Show up at this place, blah, blah, blah." And the next day, my girlfriend calls me and I go, "What's the name of the place?" She tells me, and I'm like, "Holy shit, she came to me last night." So then we end up showing up. And it's like this whole little meditation thing she was doing. She was from Russia. And she comes like V lines, like there's like, oh, so many people in there. And she like makes a V line to me. And I go, "You came to me in my dream." And she goes, "Yes, I did." And she used terms I never heard of. I mean, I was really young at the time. And I was like, "Well, what does that mean? And what does that mean?" And she's like, "Oh, it's a type of meditation." And I'm like, "Well, what's this place?" And she goes, "Oh, it's this temple." And I'm like, "Huh." And she goes, "You need to set up an appointment with me. You and I need to talk. We need to do a session." And I said, "Okay." So I come back by myself. She puts me on a massage table, crystal like bowl that's full of water. She starts like lighting incense, and she puts like all these like symbols on my face with the the dust from the incense.
Yep.
And she like pushes me into a trance. I
Yep.
mean, it was like that. Like, and suddenly I was out of body and I was flying through the universe, and I saw the creation of the universe and all this kind of stuff. And there was like all these different visions I saw. Well, she starts asking me while I was there, "Where's the crystals? Where's the jewels? Where are they?" And I go,
Oh my God.
and so hold on, don't say anything.
Oh, my
Okay.
spine is getting
I
all.
know, I
Oh
know,
my
I know.
God.
And so I was like, I don't know. And she got really mad at me. Okay. And she's like, "Where are they?" And I go, "I don't know." And she said, and she goes, "Okay, fine, leave. It's probably not your lifetime." And it's I got really upset with me. And it ate at me for years. I mean, years. So then years went by, and I'm like early 40s ish, late 30s, something like that. And I met this monk. Okay. And he was like way beyond talented, telekinetic, telekinesis, telepathic, clairvoyant, remote viewing, literally like would text me and tell me he's watching me and know exactly what I was doing. Like every single thing. He was the craziest, most bizarre person I ever met. Okay. And so I'm actually writing a book. It's being edited at Amazon right now about this story. But anyway, so he's like teaching me all this stuff, right? And so through some of the instructions and everything he taught me, I ended up having this vision or astral projection where I left the planet. And I met this guy, and it was like in this rural area, and they were way more advanced, but yet they didn't seem to have technology, but yet they had technology. It was kind of interesting because they didn't live by technology. And he was showing me the community and walking me around, and he ended up showing me this big machine. And he said, and it has this like beam that shoots off to the earth. And he was talking to me about it, and everything he said, I didn't understand at the time. So I had no idea what he was talking about. And I said, this is all over my head. I have no idea. And he goes, that's okay. He goes, I have something of yours. And I go, what is it? And he walks me into this room and he shows me these 3 stones. One is red, one is green, and one is blue. And they're big crystals. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I was like, oh, no, somebody's looking for that. You got to keep it here. And he was like, no, you need to take it. They belong to you. And I go, no, I can't take it. You don't understand. She's looking for it and she scares me, And so he's like, I said, you keep it here because I don't even know what to do with it yet. I said, just hold it for me. And he's like, okay, it'll be here when you come back. And then I went back to visit again. I ended up showing up one day and he's like, I still have them for you, and showed me that I could put them into my chakras and store them there. Not too long ago, I had a visitation from the goddess Isis, and she was showing me how to activate them and what to do with them and how to take those because they were like placed into my crown chakra, think my throat and my heart. I'm trying to remember, to be honest. It was like red, green, and blue. And so she was showing me how to use them and how to activate them, some of the rituals I could do to, use this and all these different things that I could do with them. And then I had another vision after Patrick died, and he brought me into this other plane. And he said, if you go into, I don't know if you know anything about Tatwas, but if you go into the Akasha Tatwa, he said, you can go in here and here's the key, and you can activate these crystals by doing this, this, and this. And he goes, there's so much more to learn about these crystals. And the next time that you come into this, I want to show you more about what they're used for. I haven't gone back because I'm still in the process of learning a bunch of stuff, and so I was like, all right, when I get to that point, I'll come back and you can show me. But now you're talking about these downloading crystals, and like they're in here. So like these are like in a place, literally like stored and sort of like in my energy vortex as well. But I'm kind of wondering if this needs to be a physical thing. Do I need to bring it into the physical reality? And when you're talking about this and you're talking about bringing it down and then, and the different colors and stuff, it's kind of like, giving me the chills and the, oh my God, I've been waiting for this answer, like, is this what they're for? And you started talking about the different colors of them. And I'm like, oh my freaking God, maybe I'm supposed to have those, physically.
Yeah.
Now, anyway, I know you wanted to say something.
Yes. No, it's not by accident or coincidence, of course, because you just said that, and somebody's looking for them. It's interesting you would say that, because I'm not going to get it into now, because the story continues beyond the creation of the crystal circle and grid that happened for the prophecy of 2020 to create our new age that is coming in, because the story continues and also has to do with the special blue crystal and blue energy that we just talked about, and has to do with my tie into my recent trip to Egypt and Isis that I was just at the temple.
Oh my God.
And doing the blue lily inhalation, as you know, and blue crystals. And that's the continuation. So it's not by accident that I'm talking to you. In your vision, you said she's looking for it. I'm not taking them because I was still looking for the specific blue crystal to bring forth in this realm, because I've got the green and the reds.
So
That
I found the blue lily.
no, yeah, but this
No,
is
I mean, I saw a vision of it. I saw it. I know where it's at. Like
oh
astrally, I know where it's located. It's huge. I mean, it's like
yeah.
freaking huge. It's as big
Okay,
as
now
the
I'm going to freak you out, because the
moon.
thing that we didn't talk about yet, and not to do with the crystal network, and remember I said the next part that
Uh-huh.
joins us all together is those blue lilies are manifested. I was just there. I was with the only woman that has the true blue lily, not the lotus that was used in ancient times. I was just in her blue lily pool doing the inhalation therapy and shifted. I'm writing an article on it now. Just tied into the temples. I was there with the blue lilies and all of the reliefs of them inhaling the blue lily scent shift, and the stargates. It's all lining up and it's all there. And I was just in Egypt for 6 weeks, and it's all, my whole thing about the trip in Egypt has to do with the blue lily, and that whole thing. And so see how it's tying in,
Oh
and with
my
your
God, I
vision
cannot
too.
believe that I saw
So
that. And
yeah.
that was another thing I saw. And I was like,
Oh my
why are
God,
you showing this
we
to
didn't
me?
even talk about this beforehand, because I said I was just tied into Egypt, just come back. But my whole article, everything's about the blue lily and
Wow.
inhalation therapy and shifting and the energies, and with the ankh and tuning, and what they used it to shift to use it as a stargater portal. And I was just part of that, all that just happened. I just got back a month ago from this whole thing that ties in to to
Wow.
what you're talking about. So yeah, not by coincidence we didn't meet, and that we met. I mean, oh my God. And so now this has to do with your visions and about somehow with me and the crystals. And yeah, I'm the one looking. I'm the one looking for the crystals. Yeah, she's looking. Yeah.
I think she actually passed away. So she's gone.
Who? No, no, who you're talking about?
The girl that was looking, she was much older than me because she was like in her late 40s and I was like in my early 20s. So I think she's
Yeah.
gone.
You're saying this was an actual person?
It was a real person. Valentina Love or something like that.
What? What are you talking? What's my name?
What's your name?
You just said her name was Valentina Love. My name's Kaspardlove. It's the same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The matrix overlaps. You
I
can
know.
have different people with the same things and assignments, different stuff. There's some correlation between. Now, also look at the name, and you talk about your Russian person and this woman. What's my last name?
You're Russian.
Yeah, Serbian, Gypsy, Russian background,
Wow.
Serbian, Kaspardlove. Love.
Wow, wow, that's
Weird.
so interesting.
That's
Yeah,
weird.
this woman like kind of freaked me out because she was always trying to get in my head. Like every time I go to sleep, she would show up and try to like dig through my memories. And like she was trying to pull like past life memories and astral memories and all this other
Oh
stuff.
my God.
And I literally had to like block her because I was like, you're not allowed to do this. And she would get really angry with me because she said that it was inside of me and I wasn't there yet. Like I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't know how to activate the knowledge. And I was like, I was young. I mean,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah.
and so I was just like, you're crazy, lady.
But I went through. I was young too, so similar to you. Like as you asked me about connecting, I didn't connect a lot of things because all this stuff went on. Remember, my mentors were older too. That I just said they were in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and I didn't know half the stuff. I didn't connect most of the stuff that was going on about what all this till recent years. You know what I mean? It took all those years, my whole life,
Wow.
actually, to connect everything together and about the prophecies and how it all worked and the network. And then I'm still connecting it. Look, and I just connected something about this blue lily and the blue energy. I just went to Egypt. It just happened. And it's still part
Yeah.
of the whole same story, and about something that's still going to come and something that's still happening with the world, and why I still need to send out whoever wants them more of the crystals that are part of the crystal network to anyone who wants to hold a place and have this.
I'll hold a place for you. And I very interested in holding those specific, and we can have a conversation about that. But I'm going to tell you, they're about this big. The ones that I saw, they're fairly
Yeah.
large. The red,
Yeah.
green, and blue.
Yeah. Well,
And
the ones that I mined all are
mhm,
small, although up to
mhm.
that size and larger. The crystals in the main points around the world for the crystal grid that I sent, like in the tops of the mountains in Colorado and the Yukon, way up by Alaska, I had certain, they were huge. I'm talking about, I sent points out that the size that you're talking about. I have those.
Wow, wow.
That's what I mean. They were huge. I sent some points that were 12, 15, 20 pound crystal points from those same pockets. Because
Mhm.
when I opened a pocket, they'd be all different sizes from small all the way up to huge.
Well,
And
I can tell you that if you find those for me or if you have them, I know that I have a couple of people ready to tell me what to do with them. I just have been saying, keep it for a while because I don't know what to do with it. It's like if you hand this to me, I have no idea. And so it was like it would just be sitting there like looking pretty. And they're like, "Oh no, we're gonna let you know." And even Patrick was like, I have the key. And, and I've been learning how to like go to different planets, doing like planet scrying and talking to the planetary spirits and stuff. And I have this really strong draw towards Jupiter. So there's something in that connection with that as well. So I don't know. It's all like so fascinating. I'm loving this conversation. I mean, it's so interesting to me. So I want to talk about the prophecies. Is it something you can talk about?
sure, yeah, no, well, they happened. So it was the recent prophecy out of Uluru for December 2020 to bring in the next age, right, of Aquarius. And you can go online, and they were meeting the Uluru tribe out in Uluru, right? And the men were all meeting, and the woman met in another location, and it was in to activate and to dream in, and it all had to do with the crystals and a part of it, and I think it was with the Strange. I think their last name Strange Brothers or whatever, but they went a little bit further into detail about it and had to do with um, sort of like almost like a crystal skull type of thing being activated during that time, like that type of thing that went out in the energy to create the next age. So it happened December 20th on the solstice, the prophecies out of Australia at Uluru.
So, but that does this have anything, because we had the whole 2020 lockdown and COVID and all this stuff. Does it have anything to do with protecting from that? Or was that it's just a coincidence?
No, I think everything's connected. It's very complex and it all has to do with everything. You know what I mean? At the time and
Mm.
what they were trying to do. Yes, I kind of believe that. And being an astrologer and progressing charts and cycles forward and back, I'm always doing it. And I always keep track and I write down things. But I actually have my journal here, see?
Oh, wow.
And it's got Revelation 12, and there's a picture of a constellation of a star alignment that happened with the lion and the woman. And I don't draw very.
Yeah, that was like September, or was it September or was it December?
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember.
September
Okay.
23rd, 2017.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I remember
I
about
actually, this journal is from before then.
that.
I kind of put it here to show you like about, how, progressing and cycles and patterns work. But this is something that I had wrote and I knew about. And it says right here, like Revelation 12, right? A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and with the moon under her feet and a crown of 12 stars on her head. And she was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. That exact alignment, which only happens very rarely, was actually September 23rd, 2017, which you just mentioned. You kind of knew
Mhm.
about it, right?
So I'm familiar about it. Can you explain how it actually showed up in the stars?
In the
Um,
stars?
yeah.
Well, it's exactly. Well, on that day, Leo the lion with the crown of 12 stars, and the woman, right, which
Was Virgo the virgin?
that's right, right. And she
Yeah.
was there and she was clothed. And then the child was born at her feet, which was the moon. The moon was at her feet in a certain place. And there was Jupiter. The child is born and exists. And there was the alignment. So it had to do with the alignment of, yes, all the planets and Virgo and the moon and the child and the birth being born. That's why I drew it, with
So can
the
you
alignment of
explain
the stars.
what is the child being born? That you said that was Jupiter?
Yeah, the birth of whatever. Jupiter was in retrograde at the time, I believe, and it indicated a time that was so important at that date, and had to do with it. I made a note that I progressed the chart exactly 1,260 days forward, which is 3 years, 6 months, and it came up with exactly the date of March 2021, when lockdowns and the virus, and the other things happened. We don't need to get into that, but and I had dated it all the way from March 2021 all the way to 2024. In that period of time, when I looked at the stars, and what I wrote is Satan or evil will be unleashed upon the earth, and no living being or thing will escape this fate. That's what I have written. I always forget why I write things sometimes, but on this page, that all came to me during that revelation, the star alignment, that September 23rd date, and it kind of went to the dates about what happened, about what was.
What do you think that means? I mean, because obviously a lot of people really thought there was going to be a virgin that has a child and, all that kind of stuff. They thought it was like that was going to happen instead of being an astral type thing. So do you have any idea what that actually means? Or do you still not know yet?
Okay, well, let me think here for a second, because another note. Okay, that whole date is important because it has to do with an energy being unleashed on the planet, I think. I'm just throwing this out. I'm just thinking of it now, top of my head.
That's
That
okay.
Satan and evil would be unleashed, and it was a time to raise your vibration or frequency. And I even have starseed, crystal network, and people that would be aware or awake to know not to what to do or not to do. Has to do with choices and energy, and this is partly why I think with the crystal network and everything, because everybody that took that were aware of this kind of thing, and what would happen during this period, because we know what happened during that period of March and what everybody was forced to do or not do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And different things. And so
when is the election? The election's in 2024. Do you remember the actual?
Oh, yeah. See, I haven't even thought about all that, because remember, I'm not American. So I guess your election's coming up in 2024. Yeah, with that period of unsettledness and, like I said, pure chaos and weird stuff going on the planet. And if you look too at those dates, you would have to look at the correlation
So
between
what were the
and
dates?
also what's going on in Ukraine and everything through this whole period, right?
Okay, hold on. I just Googled it. So, tell me the dates that you just said that happens in 2024.
Evil or Satan would be unleashed upon the earth in a period, and it would be at the height all the way between March 2021 all the way to the end of 2024.
Oh, at the end of 2024.
Would be the heightened period of chaos and, evil. And so during that period, there'd be all this stuff, and it was important for anybody to keep their vibration and frequency at a level of this energy to be. This was a start of a certain alignment on September 23rd, right?
Okay, so they start the whole election thing, and they have like registration, mail-in ballots, deadlines, early voting, and the early voting ends 11/30/2024. So I'm kind of thinking, how like what happened with this whole thing with Trump versus Hillary, and how everybody got into this whole uproar, and there was a lot of like constant, like people are hating each other and blocking each other from social media if they chose one or the other because they were taking huge sides. So I don't know if you know, Barack Obama's wife, Michelle Obama, is going to be running for president.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. You're Canadian, so you probably don't know much about it, but she's running. There's this guy he's with what they call the Creative Society, and he's running individually. And there's this whole thing about creating this whole new world, sort of like this utopia thing, and they're going to be using technology to move it in.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course Trump is running. So you've got some really extreme situations that are happening here. You've got the whole democratic one world order that's trying to come in.
Throw into Bobby Kennedy into that mix and what he knows and what he's trying and what's going on with him, and you throw him into the mix, and which he probably should run as an independent, probably.
He might be. You've got like the Democratic Party is trying to pull in the one world order, and it seems like it's coming from a negative perspective. And then you've got this other guy who is running independently, who sounds like he's trying to create a one world order as well, but it's kind of almost sounds sort of like utopia, the way that he's creating it. Like everybody's going to have food synthesizers and, you know, healing pods, and everybody's going to have like really nice houses. And, you know, I mean, it's like, we're going to create this beautiful world, you know. He said that the technology's out there and there's no reason why we can't have it. He's basically bringing it into which sounds like AI will be ruling the world. It's a really interesting thing to follow. Like, a lot of people haven't heard about the Creative Society, but it is something that is interesting to kind of look at. You know, my husband and I get into these debates about it. I've had debates about it with several other people. And I'm like, you know, something's going to happen regardless. I'm just going to sit back and watch. I'm just telling you what the options are on the table. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's really interesting because you've got some very conflicting viewpoints of, you know, and of course everybody knows what the viewpoint of Save America, you know, Trump and his whole like thing. So you've got all these different viewpoints that are coming in, and they're going to be coming in hard. I can see how nobody can escape all this anger and torment and fighting and war and probably even protest and just all kinds of stuff. I mean, my feeling is, you think it was bad when Trump was running against Hillary. It's going to be horrible bringing these three entities in, you know? And like you said, this other one that might be running, oh my God. Yeah, I kind of have a feeling that this could be part of it. Like, nobody can escape from it. Yeah, because the energy is going to be so strong. Like, no matter where you go, you're going to have somebody like angry. You know, it's going to be, it's like this whole division of thought.
It has to do with our whole split in reality, right?
Yeah.
We have two complete extreme realities going on the planet right now, if you look at it, including, you know, our weather systems that are extremes, you know. So we have that two extremes that are going on, right? And which part you want to participate in at this time is totally up to you, right? But most people that are listening to your podcast and that I'm involved with, and everyone, we're already part of, you've removed yourself, most of us already, from that collective, right? From that programming and, you know, people that are sleep zombies and everything else, you know. So we're already errants or viruses. We've been removed, and, you know, we're allowed to continue, and you know, and what the system does, what I find is, you know, as long as it can keep the majority of the collective program to a certain level, it'll leave us alone to allow us to continue on our errant way. You know what I mean?
Right. So what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Well, they'll only put so much energy into you, you know what I mean, to make this reality work. Okay, depends what you believe, whether we're in a, you know, matrix, a simulation, programs where they have scripts, right? Whether we're programmed. And being my background as a programmer in that IT field, I kind of understand that whole concept and how that works. And I believe we are in a construct and in a simulation.
And you believe that most people have scripts.
Oh, yes, definitely.
I absolutely agree with you.
Oh, definitely. And I can say this, you know, for your viewership here, that, you know, it's not because I don't know. It's like I said, you know, from 79, I've been a programmer coder and worked at various levels and have never stopped. And, you know, so I'm well aware of, if you want to get into, I don't think this podcast, because that's another whole can of worms about.
No, I know. And I think this would actually be a really good subject, because I'd love to have you on again, actually multiple times. I'm just going to say this real quick. So what I do is I deprogram, I reprogram. When you're talking about having scripts, I call them non-player players. I look at it like it's a video game, and some people have control of their remotes, and some people are just in there because they're programmed in there, and it's like rinse and repeat. You hit them and it does the same thing over and over and over again. And it's almost like there's nothing you can do. Their script is so solid that you can't move them. Correct. They're there for that reason. And then there's other people that are trying to break out of the script. It's sort of like they come aware.
Right.
They've been shown the blue pill, the red pill, you know, that kind of stuff. And they're sort of like, I know I need to break out of this, but I'm having a hard time. And then there's people who have broken out of it. You have control. So what I do is I usually work with the people that know and want, and that's hard. I mean, it's a hard thing to get people outside of the program. They get very upset about it because they don't understand that there's all these things that trigger those responses that's in the codes, you know, that cause you to keep on wanting to go back into the programming. I'm like, you have to be conscious. You have to make a conscious choice. You have to step outside of what's happening. Your brain is not you. It's the program. You've got to literally clear it out. Like, we got to make a new program. You know, you got to step outside of it, which is one of the reasons why I kind of started getting into like doing this podcast and doing more spiritual stuff, because now we're tipping into people need to get outside of the idea of this kind of stuff being evil, this kind of stuff being the devil, this kind of stuff being, you know, oh, it's against my religion. They need to understand that this is more real than your whole life. Okay. Your whole life is just a damn program. You're just a script running over and over, rinse and repeat. This stuff is real. Like, this is real. Magic is real. Astral projection, remote viewing, things that you're doing, bringing stuff in from the astral plane into reality. That's like manifesting. And it's really interesting because that kind of follows the tree of life and, you know, going into the four worlds and, you know, downloading that information of formation. I love what you're saying, because everything you're saying is like really connecting with me. And I had really no idea of how this was going to go. I just knew that I needed to talk to you, you know? So I really feel like we need to continue this conversation. I think that you and I could have several conversations about this. I know that we want to bring people to your website. The website is crystalnetwork.com.
That's right. Stands for Queen of Quartz, of course, me, Queen of Quartz. crystalnetwork.com.
I think we talked about people who want to hold the crystals to be part of the crystal network, that you only charge shipping, but you also make crystals for people, specifically crystals that are for like healing purposes, crystals that have specific energies that do specific things.
I'll give you an example, Michelle.
And you charge for those, by the way.
Yeah. Being a prospector miner of over 40 years, and I've collected, and I have some very rare, very powerful crystals. One is an ametrine crystal that I had claimed to, and they're so beautiful and powerful because they're tri-crystals and they're phantomed, and they have a layer of clear crystal on the bottom, the crystal, so clear, a center layer of amethyst, and a top layer of citrine, all in the crystal. They're ametrine crystals, really rare. And remember, I've been the only one to touch and mine these crystals. You know, they don't come from some country where you don't know where they're getting them from and who's mining them. I'm the only one that have mined them. And so these crystals are so powerful because, as you can see, they connect all your chakras. So your lower chakras together, right? And your whole top, and the clear crystals for communication, information, for clarity. You know how the clear is for that. And the amethyst is for your crown and your third eye, and connecting that together. And the citrine, what it does, it takes all negative energy and completely converts it to positive at the same time. So it's a tri-crystal to use for all kinds of things, right? So you've got the power of the three of those.
So and you have the ones that actually do healing, like physical healing, right?
Yeah. That the ametrine's good for that too, right? Because of the three components, depending what you want, right? But yeah, I have crystals for everything, depending what you want, right? What kind of healing, what kind of things that.
Now, is this all on this website?
Yeah, basically, I used to have a different one, but they can just get a hold of me just on there. Yeah. And you start a conversation, then usually people let me know what's going on in their life, what they'll use it for, whether they want it for meditation, for dreaming, for lucid dreaming, for healing, for abundance. There's so many things that you can use different crystals for. And, I have a big collection of pretty well almost everything.
Do you put these crystals in your circle and charge them like on certain specific astral events or anything like that?
Yeah. Okay. Again, all my crystals that I've mined, they've already been charging, and most of these crystals have been out since the 90s. in my yard charging under moons, sun cycles, every kind of event you can think. So most of these crystals were out charging already since the 90s. So yeah, so they're
Wow.
already cleared and all that. And like I said, nobody's touched them besides myself. So I have a huge collection. And then once they're charged and they've been out and everything, I'll go and pick and I'll put them in special flats and wrap them up. And, I'll go through them depending what.
Now, don't you actually carve some of them?
Yeah, I do. Those are really special, the carved ones. You can go on the site, and I carve wizards, and I have special dream crystals I carve, like a man and a woman that are special right hand and left for dreaming for each hand, and pendants, and yeah. So I do carve crystals as well. They're one of a kind, and I do them all fantasy cut with diamond bits, and so each one is special and unique, and it's really interesting. Oh, the relationship I have with the crystals. When you're sculpting and carving, of course, I sit with them and I hold them and they talk to me. And as I'm carving the person and what it is comes out of the crystal. So sometimes they're women, sometimes they're old men and they're very old and grandfather and have old energy and have lots to tell me. And they give me little shocks, because they're piezoelectric. So when I'm carving, sometimes I get little, and they send me messages. Yeah, it's really strange how it ends up, the carving, like what it ends up being, it always, the energy of the crystal. So it always, comes through the crystal, man, woman.
Wow, that's so amazing. I
Whether,
love it. I
yeah,
love it.
when I'm
Yeah.
carving, I don't know, most sculptors say that they don't know until they start taking it away and carving and the connection and it becomes what it is. It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And of course, when you're doing stuff like that, as any artist knows, and I'm sitting because it takes hours and hours, most times I'm completely shifted, right? While I'm carving, I'm not really there, and I don't notice anything outside. I'm completely shifted when I'm carving, and I don't even, after I get up after hours and hours, I don't even know the time. I don't remember carvings. I look at it after and think, oh my God, I did that. I carved that. How did I do that? You know what I mean? Because you're shifted.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I totally understand. I get that completely. I've been in those states like often. So I get it. This is such a great story. And I would love to have you back to talk about future prophecies, maybe some of the astrological events that are coming up, and, a little bit more about this 2024 thing. What we can do to raise our consciousness, to help us elevate ourselves, that kind of stuff. This podcast is about raising your consciousness, to inform you, to give you tools to be able to help you move through and set yourself up for getting outside of the grid, getting outside of the script, and getting outside of the matrix. Okay.
That's right.
So
I think to end why the crystals, and everybody understands why they're so important. Okay.
yeah.
Michelle, we wouldn't even be talking today if it wasn't for crystals, right? The whole communication systems, our networks, our fiber optics, everything, our communication systems, quartz radio, quartz watches, quartz. It's all based on SiO2 silica, right? So our whole, it's based on that, and how I can't stress how important that, the quartz is, and quartz crystals. Yeah. And they're piezoelectric, and we use them to store information. We use them. And so the crystals that I have, they're exactly the same. When you send a crystal, and these crystals, when you hold them and you meditate, you use them to hold for information. Like when I have a crystal and I shift and I'm holding my crystal and I go into a dream and I hold them at night and I'm dreaming and have my dream, that crystal is recording that, okay? Recording your dream. You know how people can't remember dreams or can't remember what happens? Well, then after, when I wake up and you get used to it, you hold that same crystal that's recorded that when you're shifted, when you sit and meditate, your recall, it actually will recall and give you that information back.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right?
I want to clear something up. I just want to make sure people understand.
Okay.
Okay, crystals are used for technology. We wouldn't have computers or anything else. So we have this electrical current that's moving through the crystals, right? And so I want you to really think about that, because our minds are electrical currents.
That's right.
Just like a computer, our brains are literally an organic computer. So we store information, we learn information, we get viruses, the whole 9 yards. I mean, like brain viruses, like Chris, Okay.
Yeah.
So like we get badly programmed and stuff like that. And just like a computer needs the crystal for it to work, our brains can be activated, cleared. All kinds of stuff can happen by using crystals of different forms. So
Correct.
it's important that we understand that this isn't just some woo-woo thing that, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, she's into crystals. She's so weird. This is a real thing and it's science.
Well, we're crystalline in nature to begin with
Yeah.
ourselves. They've already proven it. Anybody can go out and look nowadays and find the information. That's why I don't think I need to go into all those details, because most of the stuff I can just say, go look. But yeah, we're crystalline in nature. We wouldn't exist in this plane unless we were. And think about it. It's even something simple people don't realize, that anything that clicks to start has a crystal in it to do that. Anything that
Wow.
clicks, that starters, with little flames,
Mhm.
anything that clicks to start has a little crystal in it for the
Wow.
piezoelectric charge to click it. To
So
start.
it requires a charge. It's like
Yeah, it
it's a
requires a
charging
charge.
mechanism.
Yeah.
So I can think of like a million
I
things
know,
to
me
talk
too.
about, like a million subjects. I would love to have you back. Whether our listeners would like to have you back. It was such an honor talking to you. You guys can reach her at Q of Q, crystalnetwork.com. I will have that in the description. So if you want to be able to reach her, reach out to her. Her email address is on her website, right? Isn't that what
Correct.
you said? If you want to be part of the Crystal Network, you reach out to her. If you want, to actually have crystals that heal or do specific things or hold specific properties, and you're looking for something that might help you with whatever it is that you need help with. Again, she even carves them. They're very unique. They're one of a kind. You guys, I'm so honored to have her, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Michelle.